Have a look at this. Northern Territory has come back into play. People have, like Andrew Dimitri, involved. We spoke about this on Footy Classified when we originally did the story about Tasmania and what they needed to do, including the roof on the stadium. We said at the time, well, if you're going to go to 19, you may as well go to 20. So do we do that? What is the 20th club? Let's discuss this, because at a time when we're going to Doug Nicholls round, it's never been more important to stimulate and to get the Indigenous players back going. Numbers are down a little bit. People say, though, a lot of that is COVID related. There was 2 years where young players weren't going to scholarship squads and things like that. They were just left in isolation. So what do you do? What's the thoughts on the 20th team? Now, Damo, I'll throw this into it. My feeling, and talking around senior people today, is that there's still more of a chance it is a 20th side that will come out of West Australia rather than Northern Territory. I would still like to see Queensland teams, Brisbane and Gold Coast, really take over Far North Queensland and the Northern Territory. So, for example, this weekend we've got Gold Coast playing. Let's give them a taste of it. Let's get things going. Let's work out the infrastructure and maybe get them to play 6 games in the Northern Territory. It might be enough. You know, everyone thinks we have to have our own team.
Isn't it about the footprint on the map, though, Ed?
Yeah.
This is what the greatest argument for the Northern Territory is, and I thought that was what the competition itself was getting behind, and even the general football follower.
Yeah, I don't think there's a worry about it. I think we can hasten slowly. We've got to get Tassie in. I'd like GWS, for example, to play 8 or 9 games in the capital, in Canberra. They don't need to come around all the time.
No, there's a hole on the map when it comes to the Northern Territory, and there's 2 teams already in that side of the country. When it comes to WA.
You're sort of agreeing with what I'm saying.
I'm agreeing, but I'm still thinking or believing that if they have a 20th licence, it will be in the Northern Territory, not the 3rd one in WA.
What about the argument of that there's no good games there?
Well, that's a fair argument. Yeah.
You're
talking about the conditions in winter in Australia.
Just that you can't really remember a game there. I know the crowd and they're excited and all that sort of thing.
Well, that's the argument for having the roof on down in Tasmania, apart from Buddy kicking 13, who can remember another game. So that's what you'd have to do. So there's a lot of infrastructure, there's a lot of money going out. There can be a far more sophisticated way of doing this so that we still get everything happening in the Northern Territory. You don't necessarily have to have a team. Now, as I said, if you don't have the West Australian team, which would be privately owned, I would have thought, and you actually get that big stadium getting an extra game every other week in there as well, so 3 teams in there, that pays for a lot of this stuff.
And then the other issue too, Ed, and you've been on this long before the 19th team is coming in, the drain on actual access to elite talented players. A 19th team coming in, the lack of access that some clubs have already got to elite talent already, you add a 20th team, it's going to just destroy the numbers. So
I'll throw one up for you guys, and I'm not promulgating this, but this has been discussed at the Rules Committee back in when they had one. Do we solve a few problems? So concussion, congestion on the ground. Do we take a couple of players off? Do we cut the list back a bit? So, for example, if you took 2 players off the ground, in the old days the VFA didn't have any wings, OK? Let's say you took 2 or 3. You lose a forward pocket, a ruck rover, and another pocket at the other end, OK? So you've got 15 on the ground, or 16. That gives you 54 or 36 senior players to pick from straight away for Tasmania, thicken up North Melbourne, etc., etc. Is that something we should be looking at? Is the number of... Do we look at the numbers that are on the ground and maybe solve a couple of problems, or is it just make it...
I'm not cutting the list just yet. We just highlighted 2 teams tonight who've probably got a dozen plus that are out through injury, and you want access to the players from Monday to Friday. I get the whole idea. Can you grab them from the 2nd level? But no, I wouldn't be cutting lists just a moment, and I'm not a fan of less than 18 on the field. That's just me. I'm just not there yet.
I'm not either, no.
I'm the same with the 18 too, Ed. Yeah, I can see. I love solutions being put forward.
No, that's but
I
these are
don't
things we
see
have
that
to talk about. And I'm not pushing it. I love our game. I don't want to change it every 5 minutes either. But if you can find 54 players you can play, because what we don't want to have is 20 teams where 9 of them are useless by April.
Which is well, not 9, but there's 2 or 3 right now, aren't there?
There's 2 or 3, and that becomes 5, becomes 6, and suddenly everyone says, "Oh, you get more games, you make more money." No. And I've heard Kerry Stokes say this himself. No, we want good games.
And I think our best sides still play a wonderful brand of footy. It's often the coaching of the lower end sides who are playing a way that they don't score. and that's what hurts the game more than the rules itself.
The bottom line, though, is I think that I know all the AFL are up in Darwin. It was great to see Buddy Franklin was up there today. So there's a genuine push into making sure that we continue this amazing rich vein, as we saw in the opener, of brilliant Aboriginal players playing our game and making Australian rules the game for Indigenous Australians.